Blue Ridge Parkway to Blowing Rock, so we could kind of hit that portion that was open. But for example, you can't do Blue Ridge Parkway between Asheville and Blowing Rock, at least in its entirety, because there's still closures.
There's a
in
closure
there. So
there.
those are just PSAs for anybody who's thinking about going up. There are still some remnant closures, but I mean, they've made a ton of progress, right, Brett?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there are sections, and it is making some sections more crowded than they normally would be, because there's no through traffic. Like, I've known people that have gone up to Virginia, like Mount Rogers, Grayson Highlands, and drive all the way down the Blue Ridge to Asheville. You can't do that because there's still so many sections closed down. So those are some great tips heading up there into the mountains. Claire, you mentioned the weather this week. It's going to be pretty warm for all of us and pretty dry. I noticed you showed the drought monitor, and so did I. How concerned are you guys in the Greensboro area about this drought and us not really having significant rain in the near future?
Oh, Lord, there have been months recently, we've gotten a lot, and then some months we haven't gotten much at all. I would say a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit more concerned, obviously, for our folks out toward the east and maybe a little bit more toward the coastal plain. But I know that they just got a little bit more from that extratropical system, that nor'easter that was just offshore. So that's some good news. Hopefully that will improve the map that comes out on Thursday. But no doubt we're going to continue to be abnormally dry. I know we need rain. And, while we're on the topic of fall foliage, too, weather plays such a big role in how vibrant the display is each year. So sunny days help build up those sugars, while those cool, but not freezing nights lock them in. And that makes the reds especially bright. Too much wind or heavy rain, though, can also knock the leaves down early. So that's another thing also to consider while you're leaf peeping, just, how the weather plays such a big role in what you're seeing, too.
Yeah, and this week, I mean, we couldn't have timed it out better. It's peak color, and we don't have a bunch of the low clouds and fog that kind of sock in the views and those overlooks. And so it is a pretty good week, and we got lucky. The mountains didn't see the winds we had here in the Piedmont East that would have blown off a lot of those leaves. You always worry about those fall cold fronts, one coming through and blowing all the leaves off. So it really is a great week to head to the mountains. And I will concur with what Claire said. If you can, the best time to do is go midweek like Tim did today. Maybe not go on the weekend when it's busy and crazy. Go up in the middle of the week, because they would love to get you up there and get you to spend some money in the mountains. They are still recovering from Helene, and this is the week to go. But don't worry, if you can't get up there this week, if you're like us, we have to work and we got stuff going on, the next couple of weeks are going to be just as fine. You just got to pick a different elevation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next couple of hours talking about your breaking headlines, in-depth discussions, and of course, live feeds that come into our newsroom throughout the day. So we want to start off actually with some money talk because we know holidays are coming up. Folks are no doubt starting to feel a little change in the weather, fall, giving you the fall feels, also kind of beckoning the fact that, yes, we might have to get some gifts soon. We might have to start thinking about decorations, all that stuff. And based on some of the recent surveys we've been reporting on, there apparently is some trepidation out there from folks in the U.S. about how much the holidays might cost this year. Joining us to talk about this some more, we have Ivan Rodriguez. Ivan, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Impact News. So what are you seeing the landscape right now as far as consumer sentiment and spending expectations with holidays around the corner?
Vanessa, many holiday shoppers are anticipating higher prices and bracing for hits to their wallets, according to a new survey from Bankrate.com. The survey also found fewer Americans are planning to travel this holiday season as financial pressures weigh on consumers. The holiday season is fast approaching, but with the murky economic picture, many may not be in the spending spirit.
People are saying that they're pulling back around the holidays. I take it with a bit of a grain of salt, to be honest, just because there's been a big disconnect this year between what people say and what they do.
In a new survey from Bankrate, 41% of respondents say they're concerned holiday gifts will be more expensive this year, and roughly a third of shoppers plan to take on debt. Bankrate's Ted Rossman says the survey also found fewer people are planning to travel during the period between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
We see that only 21% of U.S. adults are planning holiday travel this year. Last year, it was 27%. And I'm surprised that this is going down just because through September, the TSA has actually processed more air travelers this year than last year per day.
For those who are planning to go home for the holidays, Clint Henderson with the Points Guide travel platform says there's still time to book.
We're about to enter the perfect booking window when prices are not too high, not too low. If you book too early for the holidays, you're going to pay a premium. And also, if you book starting after around Halloween, prices are going to start going up from there.
When it's time to travel, be prepared. Have your airline's app on your phone to track your plane and rebook if necessary.
Keep informed, keep up with the news. You really want to be an informed consumer during any kind of intemperate weather or other government problems or even freaks of nature.
The U.S. Travel Association is also projecting slower growth for travel this year. According to their latest fall update, they do expect higher growth rates in 2026 and beyond, driven by events like the FIFA World Cup and America 250 celebrations. Vanessa?
Now, Ivan, I guess with all of the concerns that we are seeing out there about spending money and trying to rein in some costs, are there any suggestions for folks on holiday spending and keeping it maybe within budget or not hurting the wallet so much?
Well, according to Bankrate, people can set aside money, if possible, ahead of time in order to not take on any debt. Start shopping early and take advantage of the sales throughout the fall. Stay flexible with your travel schedule, if possible, and try secondhand shopping, especially for kids' toys.
Ivan Rodriguez reporting for us. Thank you so much for your time here on Live Impact News. We'll see you next time. All right, and with that, folks, we want to turn to a breaking update on a local story we've been following. And we just several minutes ago got a statement from CMS regarding that fire we were covering for you in our 3 o'clock hour of Live Impact News. This is over at Cotswold Elementary School. And you're looking at what the scene looked like around that time. Of course, since then, fire crews and medic and police have since cleared out. But we're learning from CMS that apparently there was a welder who was cutting pipes during demolition work that was underway at that school. Sparks ignited nearby debris. We're told that caused the fire. Charlotte Fire had told us actually within a couple of hours of the incident that they got the fire under control within about an hour or so, a little less than an hour. No injuries reported, which is good news. And as we mentioned, this was a building that was set to be torn down. So really no students or staff impacted, as none were on site at the time. Sounds like all construction staff are safe and accounted for. That is according to Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. So good to hear. No injuries, no concerns, but yeah, certainly a scary situation for a period of time. Once again, it was a welder that they're sparking of debris really caused this fire. As we get more information, we'll pass it along. Meantime, time for a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be talking about this SpaceX launch. It's always an interesting topic to talk about on Live Impact in the sense that we never know what's going to happen. Although we have an idea of what could happen, you know, if you look at the processes of how these launches typically go. So we'll talk about that in about 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus, alongside producer James Brierton, who you'll probably be hearing from in the next couple of moments because we are covering a topic that is, I think, near and dear to James's heart.
I think we could say that.
Yeah, you're into science. And of course, with that comes space travel. And we've got the SpaceX launch happening in just a few minutes. So you said within maybe 15 or so minutes of this, James?
Yeah, looking at the SpaceX feed right now, which I'm going to put on the screen and take our live bug away, you can see we're about T-minus 15 and a half minutes. We're going to see these fellas and folks and ladies and gents over at SpaceX pop up from time to time. Vanessa and I are also going to be here talking you through what we expect to see. So here's a look right now at Starship 11, Vanessa. This is going to be their 11th test of their very important Starship rocket, which is destined to become part of the Artemis program. They are continuing to test. So, I mean, I think one of the most important things we should say right now, Vanessa, is that there is no one on board this rocket because about 50% of the time in the first 10 tests, there have been some problems. So there have been some fireworks.
Yes.
So there's no one on board. This is a look right now at some of those engines underneath. We're about 14 minutes and 35 seconds, but just to get everyone up to speed on where we are with the countdown process. Vanessa, you want to kind of maybe tag team on some of these here, taking our viewers back to what's been happening over the course of the last few minutes, starting at maybe about T-minus 30 minutes out.
Yeah, I mean, and so you were so kind as to outline some of these bullets for us, but I mean, we've covered a few of these on Live Impact, and kind of to your point, this whole process of getting ready for the launch is run of the mill in the sense like we know what's gonna happen when.
Yeah.
The reason that these launches are always so interesting, as you mentioned, James, is you kind of don't know how it's actually going to happen, whether the launch will actually happen, and if the launch does happen, what will happen after the launch, because we've covered some of the unsuccessful launches, if you will, where, you know, several minutes into these test flights, things go a little haywire and
and
had
sometimes,
explosions.
as you know, the impacts of that have been they've had to close airspace when debris started raining down over the Caribbean. So Hopefully that doesn't happen tonight, but that is one of the things we're going to be watching for. We're about 13 and a half minutes out, and everything has been going as planned, or as they like to say in the space industry, nominal. And so that means that about T-minus 30 minutes out, what they started to do as part of their process was the chill down. And that's when the liquid oxygen and the methane lines are conditioned for flight. White vapor appears at the launch pad. We'll be seeing some of that here as the countdown continues. The first visible signs of launch preparations are happening at about that 30-minute mark. Crews clear the exclusion zone. Anyone who's been working on the rocket has to leave the launch pad while flight controllers verify that the propellant temperatures and the pressures are accurate. The airspace and the marine area are evacuated so that the area is completely safe, because obviously we are dealing with a lot of combustion here, and if something were to go wrong at the launch pad, they would want to make sure that there was no one nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, we're down to about 12 minutes and a half away from a potential launch here. So they've already done that process. The
That's right.
next that would be up about 25 minutes before the launch happens is with the Super Heavy booster in Starship upper stage getting filled with cryogenic propellants. And so there will be sensors monitoring the flow rates, making sure that there are no temperature shocks that could crack valves or fittings. And so the team is going to keep a close watch for leaks, temperature spikes, and then the weather officers confirm if the launch criteria are being met, which we've seen, as we would expect with all sorts of, attempts to get into space. Weather plays a big role in whether you can actually even get off the ground.
That's exactly right. There's a lot of overlap between weather and space nerds, I think, for that very reason. I'll also just remind our viewers, Vanessa and I are walking through with you, and the feed that we're getting and that we're showing you at home right now is this official SpaceX feed. There aren't really a whole lot of other cameras in the area, so I know you're hearing us while watching some other people talk, and that can be a little awkward at times as they go through their kind of pre-game show. But I guarantee you when we get down to launch, Vanessa and I will step back, their anchors will step back, and all you'll be seeing and hearing is that actual launch process. So we've kind of checked the mark on T-minus 30 and 25 minutes. So to take everyone through what happened just a few minutes ago around the T-minus 20-minute mark, that's when the Starbase and the Hawthorne mission control teams checked the communication loops and confirmed readiness. Each discipline, from propulsion to flight software, everyone had to report go. You hear this sometimes on NASA flights where they go through each and every department that's in charge of different components to make sure everyone is still go for launch. In this case, engineers at both sites were synced in real time. They were able to immediately troubleshoot if there were any issues that came up. As you can see, the countdown's continuing, so there weren't any. And it's also the moment where hundreds of specialists become kind of one unified launch team, where everyone kind of okays and signs off on their final preparations. So Vanessa, we're about the T-minus 10-minute mark now.
We're about 30 seconds away from this next point, which is the final systems check. So the engine controllers here are about to run final tests on all 33 Raptors and 6 upper stage engines. They'll have guidance and navigation computers that are transitioned into flight mode at that point, and then avionics will verify the communication links with ground tracking stations. They have to have every subsystem reading green before they can continue on with the countdown. And really, I feel like at least one of the launches that we've had, there was a point around 10 minutes where things got scrubbed. So I think it was actually just with that final systems check where it wasn't a go.
Yeah, and one of the things they can do with Starship that they can't do when they're doing, say, a Falcon 9 launch with astronauts to the International Space Station, Vanessa, they can actually pause this for a little bit. They do have some wiggle room. So their launch window opens at about now-ish, 7:15 Eastern time, 6:15 Central time, where they are there in the coast of Texas. They did already push it back a couple minutes, so we're about T-minus 9.5 minutes now, and they could pause if they run into any issues. The big crucial pause that we've also seen sometimes comes around the 40-second mark. That is kind of the point of no return, so sometimes they take that opportunity to pause, especially since, once again, there aren't any humans on board, there aren't really any payloads on board, so there's nothing time sensitive on board other than the fact that they are now charging up this rocket.
Yeah, and so we've just passed the 10-minute mark until launch potentially, so that final system check should be underway as we speak, and then the next one would be at around 5 minutes. I know, James, just to quickly back up, you mentioned that this was part of the Artemis program. Probably worth talking about specifically where that's going to explore, considering there are a lot of areas of space we seemingly want to go as a nation, as also these individual space exploration groups have been talking about Mars and the moon. And so this one, I think, is with the moon, right?
Yeah, so that's exactly right, Vanessa. So Artemis is NASA's return to the moon, the first time that they're looking to put humans back on the moon since we did it with the Apollo program. And Starship will play a role in transporting those human astronauts to the moon. Now, we have successfully seen NASA accomplish Artemis 1, which went up with no humans on board. Artemis 2 is scheduled to happen at some point in the first half of next year, according to the latest timelines. That will bring astronauts back up into space. They will orbit the moon. That'll be the first time humans have orbited the moon in decades, but we're not expected to see humans return to the moon until Artemis 3, which would be roughly 2027, and that would involve riding up on Starship, which would be one of the biggest and most powerful rockets we have seen.
Now, I will say, I mean, we covered the last launch. There was one in August. That seemed to go pretty well. But before that, there were 3 failed launch, including one where we talked about it exploded. So kind of to your point of not putting humans on this particular test launch right now until they are working out every last detail to make sure things will always go smoothly.
Yeah, and I'm listening right now into the SpaceX coverage. They're also talking about how one day they hope to go to Mars, and that's another place that obviously Elon Musk, owner of SpaceX, talks very heavily about. I also want to let our viewers know, as you're just joining us here, any of that white vapor you see, that is completely normal, because what happens is they're putting in the liquid oxygen and the other propellants, and those are cold, and the air there in Texas is kind of humid and warmer, so you're just kind of getting that off-gassing, which is completely normal, and isn't anything unusual. I've seen it a couple times with the SpaceX Falcon 9 launches at Kennedy Space Center, whereas they're counting down, it almost looks at one point like the rocket kind of like has a leak or something, but it's just completely normal to see that venting off to the side. So we're now at about 6.5 minutes, Vanessa, and the SpaceX program is actually just showing some nighttime drone video of their complex there, which we have seen in recent headlines continues to grow and grow and grow in Brownsville, Texas, much to the demise or the unhappiness of some of the local residents.
Well, and you were kind of pointing out the fact that what we're watching right now is a feed from SpaceX, and you called it a pregame, which I think is a pretty good characterization as we've now covered a few of these launches. You definitely see there's a lot of hyping up of the entire program, and this is the great stuff that we've done, and look at what we've accomplished. And they go into the nitty-gritty of, you know, the different particulars of the, you know, shuttles, if you will, because I think within the last couple of minutes we actually saw them showing off the tiles, and I mean they really dive into it, and it does seem to be, you know, as long as things go well, a pretty celebratory type of event for all of the people involved in this program. And I mean, you can kind of see in some of the shots when they show the crowd watching the monitors. And I mean, we did just see Elon Musk make an appearance as well.
During our last commercial break, yes.
I mean, there's a lot of like hype and hoopla and cheering that can happen during these events.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen on these streams before that when unscheduled events, i.e. explosions, happen, they are shown to us live. But sometimes what we've seen, because this is a company-produced stream that has its own narrative, its own incentives.
Objectives.
Yeah. They'll cut away a little earlier than maybe we would like to, you know, we're sort of like, what just happened? But again, this is a very remote location, and we're watching a company produce, this is SpaceX talking about how awesome SpaceX is, to put it bluntly, right? So they also are going to share their video feeds with us and some of their interviews and insights with us, which is a little bit of the give and take, because we know that they have cameras on board this rocket that obviously you and I would not be able to install on their rocket, and so they're going to use their infrastructure, including Starlink, to beam those images back to us. We see right now the wind's about 13 miles an hour, temperature 81 degrees. It looks like a fairly clear sky down there at the Texas coast, as we are now at about 4 minutes, so we can actually probably update Vanessa people on what happened at the T-minus 5 minute mark.
Yeah, so this just happened probably within the last, I'd say, 50 seconds or so. Seemingly they passed the final system systems check, moving on to range and road closures. So the range safety will verify that the Gulf airspace and Highway 4 around here, because you mentioned this is Brownsville, Texas, are clear of any ships, aircraft, vehicles. Helicopters and drones will finish their final sweeps around the zone where folks are not able to go. Public beaches, causeways are fully closed. And at this point, the site is going to operate as a controlled launch range.
You know, we had an opportunity a couple years back to talk to the aviation folks at NASA at Kennedy Space Center, Vanessa, because you mentioned that helicopters are doing sweeps because they're looking for anyone who may have violated that enclosure, that safety enclosure, whether on foot or by air or by boat. And these are things that have been detected in years past. We had a launch at NASA at Kennedy Space Center that they had to skip over because a boat came into the inclusion zone and along the coast. What an incredible view here,
That
looking
is
back down
quite the
the
view.
rocket.
Yeah, I mean, look at all that. And you mentioned perfectly normal.
Completely
vapor.
normal, yep. And they're just saying that they closed out prop load, that is the propellant load or the fuel that's going into the rocket. And again, that's what Vanessa was just commenting about. All of that white vapor is completely normal. The next 50 seconds or so is when we expect that they will finish fueling the booster. As we're coming up on about 2.5 minutes until launch. So far, things have been proceeding pretty smoothly, knock on wood.
Yeah, and, you know, we'll just point out, you never know at what stage, if any, things might come to a halt. I mean, I'm trying to remember which one it was, whether it was like 2 or 3 launches ago that we covered here on Live Impact where, I mean, they literally got down to seconds. And then
Yes.
they were just like, nope, we're not doing this. We just don't feel comfortable. And they scrubbed it.
It's a very complicated operation. Again, there's no humans on board, but you know they don't want to lose the rocket. There's still obviously a successful test and data they hope to obtain. I got to see a countdown once for a SpaceX crewed launch with astronauts on it. They got down to T-minus 2 minutes and they paused it. And this was in the middle of the night after hours of preparation. And like everyone wanted to see that rocket go up, but you know there's a lot of safety precautions in place.
Well, speaking of T-minus 2 minutes, we just passed that mark. So that's getting into the wiggle check, James.
Yeah, so at this point, the 33 main engines will do a little pivot, and we might be able to see that here on stream in a moment. They're confirming that their thrust vector control system can steer the rocket. And so there they are here. We're going to wait to see if they kind of do a little dance for us. There they go. Yeah, there's a little wiggle. And so this is the bottom of the rocket. I mean, it's a very impressive 33 main engines here at the bottom of it, and the cameras underneath here on the launch pad show us this movement. It's kind of a dramatic reminder of the scale of the booster, Vanessa, that ensures that SpaceX can guide safely off the pad and then correct for any drift that may occur mid-flight.
Yeah, that is an interesting shot to get from underneath. Actually, we're coming up now in the next stage, which is about 8 seconds away. So that's a power-related stage where they're going to actually disconnect from electrical feeds coming in from the outside. They'll switch to any sort of batteries and avionics that are on board. And so we might see quick disconnect arms moving, retracting, preparation for liftoff perhaps. Internal sensors will monitor for voltage stability. And this is a period of time where if we see any instability in the voltage, they might actually cancel the launch for now. But essentially, they just want to make sure that the Starship can fly on its own.
Yeah, and we've completely bypassed the 40-second mark, which is that last opportunity if they needed to stop down. So this launch looks like it is a go in the next 20 seconds here, Vanessa. So let's listen in.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Go Super Heavy. Go Starship. Thanks for all the historic flights, Pad 1.
Eagles pitching downrange. Booster Raptor chamber pressure nominal.
Booster and ship, nominal power and telemetry.
All right, we are about 45 seconds into flight. We're still getting the rattle here at Star Factory. We are seeing 33 out of 33 Raptor engines lit on Super Heavy as it arcs across the Gulf. Coming up next on Max Q.
So Vanessa, so far a successful launch of SpaceX Starship 11. We're just over a minute since that launch. The commentator mentioned the rattling they get, and the sound from
Max
the
Q.
is obviously very impressive. And that
So at this point, we've passed through that period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. The next thing we're looking forward to is going to be hot staging. So we've got 33 out of 33 Raptors lit. Super Heavy makes its way uphill.
Regarding the
hot staging is going to be coming up in just a little over a minute. At that point, we're going to see
the most intense
all but 3 of those Raptor engines on Super Heavy shut down. Our version of MECO
rockets there go to full thrust, producing over 16 million pounds of force. This is, again, one of the successful launches of Starship we've seen, kind of continuing what we've seen with the last couple launches. As we now looking back down Starship, we can see the Texas coastline, the curvature of the Earth here, as we are now coming up on 2 minutes and 40 seconds since launch. Vanessa, that's kind of our next major milestone.
Yeah, and I'll just let you know, James, I brought the audio down on our feed just because you were giving some great information. I just wanted to make sure that you knew what I did with the audio.
I appreciate that.
I also kind of wanted to point out, too, this is just one successful phase of what will be multiple phases to come with this launch, because I did want to point out we did cover one launch where everything seemed to go great and actually went through the entirety of live impact, which we mentioned was a 2-hour window, right? We know we go from 7 to 9, and there was a hiccup at the very end with the rocket coming back. So that is always a possibility that could happen. But yes, regardless, you were saying that we're kind of getting into that 2 to 3 minute mark.
Yeah, so we've just seen separation occur here, and this is the first stage and the second stage separating, which is anticipated here at about this 3-minute mark. And so what happens is there's a little bit of a planned choreograph here after the mechanical clamps release and the 2 vehicles come apart cleanly. We'll watch for that booster rocket to come back down, which is something that SpaceX has really kind of made their own brand, if you will. The ability to reuse some of these booster rockets has become very routine. We'll watch for that. And then that's actually set to crash land into the Gulf of Mexico, but that is part of their planned test. And now here at about 3.5 minutes after launch, what we are anticipating to see is the booster back burn. And so that is when the Super Heavy completes its short boost back burn, setting a trajectory towards that splash zone that I was just talking about in the Gulf of Mexico, with guidance systems in command and a slow roll, that is, and an attitude adjustment for re-entry. Even after separation, the booster remains under tight control to collect aerodynamic data. You've probably seen it with previous SpaceX launches, Vanessa, but to me it always looks like the video's been being played backwards, because the booster will have its engines on to essentially slow its descent, on enough to slow itself down, not on enough to push itself back up. But again, that booster kind of re-entry always looks like the video of the launch is being played backwards.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about some of the elements on the rocket being able to be reused, which is, unique and a different, feature. But there are some parts that will go away about 5 minutes. So we're probably about 20 seconds away from this. There's a single-use ring that will be released. This is the ring that absorbs the ship's exhaust. And this will be drifting away at some point soon. You might even start to see it glow because of the heat. And we're told that actually future iterations of the rocket will use this ring permanently, but for now, this is a disposable part.
Yeah, there definitely is still some work in progress. For instance, we've seen with the last couple of launches that the booster rocket goes and crashes or descends into the Gulf of Mexico, which is different than the Falcon 9 launches where they land them and they use them again and again and again. I think they're still just kind of working towards iterations with each one of these Starship launches.
Yeah. So we're probably about a minute away from the booster landing burn test. And so the booster at that point, we'll see probably once again within the next minute or so, relight multiple engines. It will simulate a tower catch descent. So SpaceX is testing out engine out capability. It's intentionally shutting one motor mid-burn. They're going to try to gather data as it comes to controllability, thrust distribution. We'll see some flames, vapor trail as well, and that will mark the test conclusion over the Gulf.
Yeah, you mentioned that catch. So one of the things they hope to do, and they've done some successful tests of this, is actually catch it. So with the Falcon 9 boosters lands on feet, this doesn't have feet coming off of it, so they kind of grab it. And in order to do that, it has to come down under its own control so it doesn't crash, and then it kind of has to hover in place until they grab it. So I think we're looking at that moment right now. Let's take a listen back in here.
Booster landing burn shutdown.
And there we heard it, booster landing burn shutdown. We saw a 13 to 5 to 3 V3 demonstration, and into the water we go.
So Vanessa, we didn't get to see it, but they're all cheering because it's landing in the water. It exploded into the water, but that's part of the planned test.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a hard splashdown that they do. High speed, there are kind of different ways that they've done these. Flight 9 was intentionally impacted at high speed. Flight 10 simulated a catch profile before impact. In both cases, the telemetry confirmed successful data capture through contact with the water. This is part of making sure that mid-air recovery is possible.
And now we're looking again in the upper atmosphere of Earth as the main portion of Starship continues its ship ascent with 6 Raptors firing, the vehicle approaching its speed here in space, cameras showing the steady engine glow as that burn ends just around the 9-minute mark. And I think that is where we'll hang out here until we get to about that 9-minute mark, Vanessa, because that is kind of where it will start to coast. A little bit of the video feed breaking up here is kind of to be expected as this kind of orbits the world, and they're beaming back down using Starlink, just like many people use for internet. That's how, of course, SpaceX would use for their own connectivity. And so now that we've reached the 8-minute mark, our kind of next major milestone comes up at 8:57, that is, when the second engine cutoff will occur. That's when all of the upper stage engines will shut down, marking the end of the powered flight and bringing Starship into its coasting phase.
This has been a pretty interesting deep dive, I feel like. I've learned a lot.
And I think SpaceX is also learning a lot. This has been a pretty nominal, is that word that they would use, or routine, or as expected, as optimistic as I think they could possibly go. As far as we can tell watching this, everything has gone to plan. And here comes the shutoff of those main engines as they enter into the coasting phase. You know, one of the things they look for during launch, Vanessa, is whether or not any of the engines failed or turned off. Because again, remember, it has dozens of engines underneath it there during launch. I didn't notice any of them failing to operate. So I think they've checked a lot of boxes here in this launch.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, there's still some time left, but we can say now, more or less, with this one close to being in the books, that they've put together 2 successful, as far as we can tell, launches between August's and today's.
That's right. There was a lot to celebrate on the SpaceX side during Starship 10. This is Starship 11. It's headed for the Indian Ocean. Vanessa, as you mentioned, there have been other launches where unexpected things have happened after the coasting phase or during the re-entry phase. So we will continue to monitor this on Live Impact News as we continue on through the evening.
Yeah. Might be a good time for a break. Of course, we will let you know if we see anything in the next couple of moments as we are taking that break. But we'll be back in 2 minutes, folks, either with more on the Starship 11 or any of the feeds coming into our Live Impact newsroom. We'll be back. Hi, folks. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We've got a brand new feed that's coming into our Live Impact newsroom as we speak. There's a rally getting underway in Washington Heights in New York City. This is a rally for the Democratic mayoral candidate in New York City, Zohran Mamdani, and considered to be a front runner. Let's go ahead and listen in. We've got some speakers ahead of him, it looks like. So we'll listen in and we'll join you with any updates.
I see we got our Queens kids in the house. I was born and raised in a one-bedroom apartment in Jackson Heights. It is where I stood a week ago with our future mayor, Zohran Mamdani, to launch the affordability calculator and show working families and renters just how much they stand to save in a Zohran administration. As some of you may know, my mom is a public school teacher. She's a special ed paraprofessional. Yes, shout out to our public school teachers. And like so many of you educators in this room, she is criminally underpaid. And if it wasn't for our rent-stabilized apartment, she would not be able to afford to live in the neighborhood she has taught in for decades. That's why when we talk about Zohran's affordability platform, it is not just about numbers, it is about real life. It is because affordability is more than policy. It's about peace of mind. It's about not waiting for a tax return to pay the bigger bills. It's not worrying how we're going to pay for birthday and Christmas presents. It's having the means to pay for rent and childcare and groceries and the basics of dignity. These are calculations families like mine make every single day as they decide whether or not they can stay in the city that they love. I was lucky. My mom fought hard to make it work. She stayed because she believed that raising me in New York would give me a chance at something better. And she was right. She gave me the opportunity to grow in the most diverse place in the country, to hear languages from around the world, to taste flavors from all over, to think beyond just one neighborhood. And just like her parents, who came from Puerto Rico, she believed in the promise of this city. Because only in New York, the greatest city in the world, could a girl from a one-bedroom apartment in Queens become the youngest woman to serve in the state Senate. Thank you. And that's what makes New York so special. That's what the other side fears, that we, a city of immigrants, of workers, of dreamers, can thrive, that we can keep the American dream alive and elect real leaders who represent us like Zohran Mamdani. And so, when I was first considering running for office in 2022, Zohran was one of the first people I spoke to. I was nervous, I was unsure, but talking to him reminded me of something simple and so important, and yet so many of us forget. We are not alone. We are part of a broader movement, ready to have our back, and that together we can bring working class power back into government. And over the years, that's exactly what I've seen him do. He has shown up again and again in Albany and in the district. He showed up to my first canvass in the cold in March on the worst day to canvass with his then girlfriend, now wife, Rama. He showed up to press conferences on my work to regulate artificial intelligence as the chair of technology. He showed up and invited me to fix the MTA pressers, to tenant association meetings, to town halls. And that's because that's exactly who Zohran is. He shows up, he supports those around him, he fights with clarity and courage. And that's exactly why, as your mayor, I know he will deliver for each and every one of us. And so Dara, he's not alone. We are all here tonight because we believe in the promise of the city. We refuse to accept the reality that the city has become too expensive for those who have built it. I look around this room and I see all of you. You could be anywhere else tonight, but you have chosen to be right here, supporting Zoran for mayor, supporting immigrants, supporting working families like my own, and showing that when we work together, we can win the future that we deserve. And that's exactly what's happened so far. 80,000 of you have shown up at the doors, have shown up to make phone calls, have shown up at fundraisers and more. And the truth is, we still very much need you to do that. We have 3 weeks left, and it's going to take each and every one of us to make sure that we get to election night in November. Because the truth is, even in one of the hardest and darkest political moments of all of our lives, our ability to win isn't determined by the chaos and cruelty of the other side. It is determined by how hard we are willing to organize, how hard we are willing to fight. And I know we have a room full of fighters tonight. So let's go and win this November. Let's get Zoran to City Hall, and let's make this city what we deserve. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
Guys, we are just 3 weeks away from Election Day, and I haven't felt this confidence the Democrat is going to win since 2016. And that's why we got to keep going out there. We got to get everyone engaged, informed, and ready to get to the polls on November 4th. That's why I'm here, because I'm nervous, guys. I could be making a lot more money in Saudi Arabia right now, but I'm here with you tonight because we got a job to do. Now, Zoran likes to quiz people on the platform, so we all know what we're telling people out there, so let's see how this room will do, okay?
All right, folks, we've been listening into, looks like some pre-speakers before the Democratic mayoral candidate for New York City is set to come on stage, Zoran Mamdani. We've got, of course, this live look at the SpaceX Starship 11 launch, which is currently in progress, and you can see a look right now at the latest in this stage here. We've got James standing by.
Yeah, so Vanessa, what they are doing here, we're looking inside the rocket right now. The last one, Starship 10, was the first one to carry any sort of payload. And these are mock Starlink satellites. They're not real satellites, but they are testing the ability to deploy more of their SpaceX Starlink satellites into space using kind of a cargo door on the side of the Starship. So that door is open right now, and they are pushing each one of these kind of flat metal pieces out. They are, again, supposed to simulate what it would be like if they wanted to add more Starlink satellites into their constellation during one of these future missions.
And we're getting pretty close to what could be the conclusion of this test flight, because we're about 21 minutes now into this. As we get closer to 30, we might start to see the ship start to re-enter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll watch for that to happen over the Indian Ocean as Live Impact News continues on here. They're about 21 and a half minutes since launch.
Okay. Looks like we have a little bit of time to take a quick break here, folks. We'll be back either with the rally in New York City, or, depending on what happens with this SpaceX launch, we could rejoin with this feed. Thanks so much for sticking with us. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be back in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. Looks like we still have that feed ongoing, that rally that's underway in New York City, specifically Washington Heights, for the Democratic candidate for mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Looks like we've got other speakers still speaking, but we can listen in for just a little bit to hear more.
Everyone must remain in their homes, in safe, affordable, permanently affordable homes, not some fake affordable housing that gets placed on some $3,000 a month apartment list. If you doubt, people doubted Zohran, and look at where we are now. He got here not only because of his ethics and what we see him do. He stands by what he says, but we're also behind him 100% because we know that the leadership is going to become, whatever happens, the laws that are passed are not going to come from the rich and powerful. The decisions are going to be made in community meetings. They're going to be made in tenants meetings. We have the power. We built this city, and we have the right to enjoy it. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage. Please welcome to the stage, all the way from Brooklyn, City Council Member Chi Osei.
So beautiful right now. I'm New York City Council Member Chi Osei, and I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling so ready. I'm ready to win. I'm ready to win. Ready to declare that a new generation of leadership has arrived, and ready to lead with a new generation of ideas, of governing, of courage. This is the generation that will turn the page on the arrogant, bitter, corporate politics of the past. Listen, we've tried those politics before, and look where it's got us. People are hurting, rents are up, wages flat, trains late, hospitals crowded, schools stretched, our seas are rising. Too many of our neighbors turn to demagogues because they have lost faith that the system can deliver for them. We are here to say it's time for that era to end. And it's time for us to end it. New York City, that transactional, timid, and tired politics has its champions. One is that sad Rumpelstiltskin-like husk of a man we beat in June. And we're gonna beat Andrew Cuomo again in November. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Generational change is not about age, it's about imagination. Where an old guard understood government as a tool of self-preservation, we recognize it as a vehicle of progress. We can freeze the rent, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. Come on. And then we can continue dreaming. Listen, Zohran is not running to manage a decline for more efficiency. He is running to govern towards greatness. Right now, that means electing our next mayor, Zohran Mamdani, for his policies, yes, but also for his understanding of power. Because the title is only half of it. Even with hearts in the right place, many leaders will fail. But Zohran will succeed as a mayor for the same reason he won in June, and the same reason he'll win again next month, because he has you. He has you standing behind him and standing with him. Now, that is the heart of our project. The combination of the institutional power of government with the tidal strength of movement. That's how we defeat fascism and build a democracy that guarantees freedom, dignity, and justice for all. But Let me offer a warning from recent memory. Sometimes we win an election and then we go home. We exhale, we demobilize, and 2 years later, the other side storms back and we're still celebrating. We cannot make that mistake again, not with so much on the line. We need to stand up, we need to mobilize, we need to get organized and continue winning after this election. So here's the plan. We must vote, we must volunteer, and we do not vanish after we elect Zoran this November. Understand that this election is to be part of a political revolution that continues inside and outside the halls of government. And after we win in November, we do not demobilize. The rich and corporate interests who tried to buy this election with the millions they stole from our pockets will want to see us fail. And we won't let them. After we win in November, the work does not end. If anything, that's when it begins. Let us carry the energy in this room into governing. We'll pack the hearings. We'll flood the inboxes. We'll show up for tenants, for workers, for immigrants, for the planet. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder with Mayor Mamdani and consider this win to be the opening chapter of a great story. We'll choose solidarity over specterhood because the work is not simply to win power. The work is to use it, hold it, and expand it together. Victory will be sweet. It will be sweet. Let our thirst for it become insatiable. This is our city. This is our century. And this is our chance to do things and stay mobilized to do even more. Friends, thank you. Friends, we are on the cusp of history. Decades from now, people will ask, how did New York City turn things around in 2025 and lead the country back from disaster? And each one of you in this room will be able to say that through the power of this movement, and I was part of it. That's how we change it for the better. New York City, a new generation has arrived. The people in this room and the movement we represent are why we will win. And if you want this movement to continue, you guys got to join New York City DSA. Thank you very much.
All right, once again, speakers leading up to a rally where we presume that mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani will speak. They're in New York City. We've got SpaceX Starship 11 test launch that is still in progress. You can see that in the bottom right corner of the screen. We're going to look into that in full right now because we are getting into an interesting part of this mission where we've got the ship that is actually cruising over the Indian Ocean as we speak. James, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so right now we're there in a successful cruise. There isn't even any audio. Everyone's just kind of standing by as this completing its orbit around the Earth. We saw on a map a few moments ago that they are approaching the coast of Africa, and they are looking to splash down in the Indian Ocean. It's very hard to see right now because they are currently in the night side of the Earth, but every so often we get just enough light as we can tell that this camera is looking kind of back down Starship and the Earth is below us. And we'll check back in on this again after the break as they again now just coming up on Africa and plan to be splashing down in the Indian Ocean next hour here on Live Impact News.
Yeah, and certainly hope to bring that to folks here who are watching. But yeah, good call on that. It's probably a good time to take a quick break so we don't miss anything on the other side. We got 2 minutes coming up for this break. We'll see you on the other side of that with more of your latest headlines. Thanks for sticking with us. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus here. We are pivoting back to the Carolinas, where we've got some dialogue that's underway regarding this potential new transit authority that could be here in Charlotte, pending approval of voters in November of this 1 cent sales tax that is related to transportation-related projects. Arjula Kay has been following this for us at length. Quite a saga. I can't believe it, though. We're getting closer and closer to the actual election day, but the early voting, I mean,
that starts Thursday.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah, this is happening. Okay, so where are we right now? Because last we checked in with you, I believe we were still in the process of discussing who's going to be on the board.
Yep, and that process is going to drag on much longer. I will be back, I'm sure, to talk about this again. But today we finally did get some progress. I mean, I just got back from City Council in the last 10 minutes after they made this decision to move forward with the interview process. So for those of people who haven't been following this closely, this transit authority is going to be 27 people. The city gets a big chunk of those applicants who will decide how this sales tax money is spent for transit projects, assuming it passes in November, which is why early voting on Thursday is putting a pretty quick timestamp on this. But Charlotte City Council gets 9 of those 27 appointments. Others go to county commissioners, the state gets some, the governor gets to choose one. So there's a lot of people with hands in this decision, but council has kind of had some disagreements about not just who should be on it, but how that interview process will work. So I was here last Monday and we talked about how that discussion got postponed. They couldn't make a decision on either of those topics. Today we got an update from Councilman Mitchell. He is the chair of that kind of subcommittee in charge of the interview process, giving very clear outlines for this is when you'll get the resumes. Voting or applications close tonight at midnight. You'll get the resumes in the morning. You'll get that full list. As of this afternoon, there's 126 applicants.
Wow, quite a few more have
significant
in the last several days.
Even last week when it was just like 40 something, I was like, oh, that's significant for something like this. So people are very interested. This is something that could have a lot of power for the next decades, so I'm not shocked, but still good to see that level of participation. And there's different categories of people that are applying from the different districts and things like that. So each council person will get to pick 3 per category. There's 9 categories, so each council person will submit 27 people, put it into a survey. It's very complicated, I know, and from there, that's how this survey will determine how many people get interviewed, all that. Each council person will also be able to submit questions that they want to make sure get asked to these people in the interview process. But there was still some disagreement just over, first of all, how confusing that whole description was. It was one of those things that you really want to see written down as opposed to me saying it out loud. But just even the fact that, you know, they decided the mayor is going to get 2 of those appointments as opposed to all 9 being council. How can we make sure all 9 categories are represented if the mayor is choosing 2 of them and she has a separate process for deciding? And so there was some of that. They did make some changes last week that we talked about to make transparency more readily available, like publishing the list of applicants and updating that every day, and making sure those interviews will be streamed to the public. Something that's still kind of up in the air right now is how they're going to be evaluating these applicants. Right now, that's not public information. Actually, the full council doesn't even have access to that right now, because it's just that committee of 3 council members who will be leading these interviews, but that will, after selections are made, be made public. That was another sticking point as well. So I know that's a lot, but we did make progress. They did vote it through, and so they will get started with that interview process. It sounds like tomorrow when they get those resumes.
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand, you know, to your point about all the power that will come with this board, why they're being so particular about the process. And we've reported on this before, but, you know, just reminding folks too that they have all these qualifications that they want these folks to embody. Like, they want someone who rides the light rail, right? Like, uses the transit services, so they have that in mind, and obviously, you know, residency requirements and job requirements, like what your background has to be to even be part of this board.
It is complicated. And they do want, of course, a wide variety of voices on this panel. But even some of the qualifications of the board itself are still kind of up in the air. Another piece of the rather lengthy discussion they went through tonight was, do we have a history of boards that are able to set their own compensation after the fact? That's something that was, I know we've talked about the PAVE Act, and that is what allowed this to be on the ballot. The state legislature had to say, yes, you can do this through that piece of legislation, but in it allows there to be compensation set for this board, and so there's that element of it. That's kind of an after the fact thing. There's also, can people currently serving who may not have made their primaries through be able to serve again? Marjorie Molina has applied. That is still a piece of contention for council of will that technically be a conflict of interest if this board is going to be picked by November 24th. She did not win her primary, so she will not be on council again. Yeah. But there's potentially a little bit of overlap in that time, even if only for a few days. But someone like her, she argues, I have experience with transit because I've been doing this for years now. And so that's going to be interesting to see if there's other familiar names that bring up some questions of, is it too familiar? And so that is why I think those interviews being live streamed will be really, really helpful for people to see what that process looks like.
Yeah. So we know you're working on this for us tonight at 11 here on WCNC Plus. Probably worth just mentioning or recapping or just bring us up to speed with early voting coming up so soon.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be something that folks will have to maybe figure out how they feel about, the actual sales tax, along with, you got some candidates to decide on as well.
Yes, we do. For people that haven't decided how they feel about the sales tax yet, for just a reminder rundown, that will raise our sales tax in Mecklenburg County and past 1 percentage point, or you hear 1 cent and 1%. It's technically the same, though it sounds confusing, 1 cent to the dollar. So 1%, it would raise it to 8.25% here in Mecklenburg County. And we have all that information on our website about, exactly what that would impact. But this board would get to decide how that's all spent on transit projects. The legislation from the state does decide, this percentage goes to light rail, this goes to roads and buses. I believe it's 40 for light rail, 40 for roads, and 20 for bus systems. But within that, the board can decide on some of these longer term projects, for example, the red line that they want to build.
Yeah.
We're also now having a renewed conversation about safety and security after the murder of Irina Zarutska. I spoke with Edwin Peacock just last week. He was on council way back when they decided to go with this open platform system, to not have those ticketing systems that prevent you from getting on the platform without having a ticket. So he and I talked about, is that something that maybe council would want to go back and look at doing, or this board would want to go back and look at doing? And he said that's something that we'd really have to weigh the cost, because that'd be incredibly expensive, and it would hinder some other projects that I know we've been wanting in Charlotte. And so I would say for people that are looking into early voting or just voting in general, that deadline is coming up soon. Think about where you live and how you would be impacted by transit projects. Are you someone who lives up in Lake Norman, in that northern area where the red line would really benefit you? Are you someone on the east side of the city who will no longer get a silver line as a part of at least the next 30 years, light rail, because that has been removed from the plan? Are you someone who, when you're looking at candidates, someone who really wants to prioritize security in the light rail, or are you someone who's more interested in making sure we expand quicker? So there's different things that I think that each candidate has been pretty vocal on how they feel about it. But a lot to weigh right now when you're talking not just the sales tax itself, but how these candidates, because every city council person up for re-election, or every district, I should say, is up for re-election. So do your research on how they feel about transit in your area, because that's going to be huge going forward.
Yeah, we always talk about the, spotlight that any sort of races that happen around the presidential election, how folks tend to focus on that, but you can't discount your local races too in the local elections, because these folks make decisions about, how local money is spent and policies and such. So it's important. It's important for folks to pay attention.
Absolutely. I think that I'm curious to see what the turnout is like, because usually for a municipal election like this, especially after kind of that election fatigue from last year, it would be pretty low turnout. But I'm curious if just some of this renewed interest in this really big piece of legislation is going to get more people to the polls.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you at 11 with your piece. Folks, probably a good time to take a break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. We have a couple feeds we're watching. Might even keep it here local in the Carolinas with a discussion on development in Lancaster County, some decisions made regarding pause, perhaps, when it comes to development on the residential front. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Live Impact News studio. We are indeed going to keep it here in the Carolinas with our next feed. As we speak, we've got Lancaster County Council with a meeting tonight. They're discussing various points. And Sean, we're going to queue up Play Deck 2 for this one. While the meeting is actually happening in progress, we actually want to roll you back several moments ago because there was a discussion over development in the county and whether there should be a pause for 9 months on any sort of application approvals when it comes to residential development. So with that, let's get you back to those earlier moments. And as always, we'll break in with anything new and developing.
Are greatly affected. As a medical professional before you many times, public safety needs to be at the forefront. I'm a nurse practitioner and I've worked in the field for over 20 years in trauma medicine, and it's very, very hard to not have your resources. It's very difficult, especially when you're taking care of people. We need to gravely improve fire service coverage, reduce response times, evaluate the volunteer/paid model. Volunteer pool will start to phase out, and we need more competitive pay lines, and also to keep our people where they are. Retention is very important. We need to make sure that emergency and fire responses have the equipment to do their jobs efficiently and safely. Overall, an emergency response plan needs to be at the forefront. Personally, as a resident of River Chase Estates, I also would like to know where our Riverside Fire Station is at. I know we have multiple correspondences on that. We're a developer who was very willingly 2 years ago, a year ago, here at planning meetings and council meetings, and recently during the summer, ready to donate the land and the monies that are in the reserve to at least start the planning process. We understand that it takes time to build something, but at least to get that planning going. Also, I'm in favor of this moratorium. How much time do I have? Good. In favor of this moratorium to really take a closer look at the new 2025 UDOs and review for 2026. We need better protection for the consumer when it comes to developers and language spelled out where there are minimal gray areas. Definitions and exceptions where safety and welfare are in question are much needed. We need to modernize and optimize these standards in place. Better processes and accountability and quality assurance is so important. We all think that developers and builders are doing the right thing, but they're just not. And we really need to really look at some processes to look really deeply into accountability. And also, hopefully, one day we can get these UDOs really optimal where we don't really need these development agreements anymore. For River Chase Estates, where I live, it didn't work. It's not working in our favor for me. I'm part of a 20-year agreement that is going to get extended further out to complete the project, which we want it completed. However, we're in the dark, with a developer. We don't get communication. Our management company is only paid for a certain amount of time to manage, and we don't know really what's going on. And to live in the dark for 20 years and plus another possible 8, 7, 9 more years is hard. We don't even know what's going on with our budgets most of the time, and we're also paying into our capital contributions. So as far as these UDOs, I really would love to see something where there's some requirement for developers to speak to their community at least twice a year. And I also, just before I go, I know I have 3 seconds left, I'd also want to commend my councilman, District 1, Sir Graham, for his wonderful, wonderful newsletters that really gets a lot of important information across. Thank you for all your time. I know this is very hard and difficult, but hopefully we can have some movement forward. Thank you.
Very much. That concludes our public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2025-1992.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. McGriff. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion? Allison, do you have anything to contribute to?
We have a presentation. There's a couple questions we do need council to give some clarity on, but Ms. Harden does have an overview so people can know some of the things that are in the moratorium and understand what may not be in the moratorium. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Harden, our Development Services Director.
Thank you. And if at any time you'd rather just skip to the vote, just let me know. So some of the questions we have received as part of the staff fielding calls, I anticipated some of them, and I've added some of the others that have actually come through the phone to help answer what a moratorium is, being the pause on processing permits and applications that would lead to new residential subdivisions and residential multifamily developments. How long is the pause? As it's been said many times, 9 months is proposed, the option to extend to 90 days. And what is the goal? To allow time for the proposed Unified Development Ordinance to be edited, reviewed, and finalized. We have been in the process of doing the UDO rewrite since 2021, where it started with an assessment by our contractors, and we are in the home stretch. Where is the moratorium located? The map was included in the legal ad that went into the newspaper. It's also attached to the ordinance. And you are also provided a turn-by-turn with maps on where the lines were drawn or where the lines will be drawn. If anybody else wants that, that's available as well. It includes all the unincorporated properties in the area known as the Panhandle, plus a stretch of rural area between Catawba River and Riverside, Old Hickory Road south to Highway 9, Chester Highway. I would like to note also that the incorporated properties in the town of Van Wyck are not included in this. This is for unincorporated properties. So anything that's outside the town of Van Wyck, town limits in this area. Some other questions, why only residential developments? There have been changes proposed in the UDO that are in conflict with the current UDO language on subdivisions. A pause means developments that would be created that are on the fence or getting ready to go would then have to follow the new rules. Residential developments also impact greatly with traffic and the like. Plus, you've heard from residents many times over in many meetings that they are concerned about the growth in the area and would like a pause. So this is is a council reacting to and responding to the input from the public. What constitutes a residential subdivision, there is a long, many-day thesis process available on that I'll be happy to talk to you for many days. But instead of that, what I'd like to say is that for this ordinance in particular, we have defined residential subdivision that would be part of the moratorium as anything over 3 lots. If you have a piece of property and you subdivide 2 additional pieces off of it, then that's the maximum that you could do in this area for this 9-month period of time, and if it's extended for that extension. This does not apply countywide. This only applies in this area. We did not want to penalize families that want to build a house on family lots. We didn't want to stop a family from being able to cut off a piece and give it to the mother-in-law, give it to a child that wants to build their own house. That's not the intent, and that's really not the impact we have. The impact that's in the area is from the larger multi-lot developments. So in the ordinance, anything more than 3 lots would constitute a moratorium impact. Does this mean that no more single-family houses or no more houses can be built in this area? That is also not the intent. The way that this is written, if you have a piece of property, you can build a house on it. If you have a piece of property in an existing subdivision that has already been approved, you may build a house on it. This does not stop that. Any questions about this so far? Yes, sir.
I'll wait till the end.
Okay. When would the moratorium start? Typically, ordinances start at 3rd reading, but this ordinance invokes what's called the pending ordinance doctrine. And in South Carolina, that means that the council, when they invoke the pending ordinance doctrine, it gives the ordinance at 1st reading, or whenever the pending ordinance is invoked, which is usually 1st reading, it gives it the effect of law. So it would be as of whenever you give the reading tonight, going forward, if you invoke that. It is written with that involved in the ordinance. If you wanted not to use that, you'd have to remove that from the ordinance. The applications that are impacted, I want to commend the planning and zoning staff, the building staff, and the stormwater staff. They all went through all of their applications together to work up which ones would be the most heavily or the most direct impacted by this. So in this particular buffer area, the impacts would be to civil site construction plans for new residential subdivisions and or residential multifamily development, commercial permits for multifamily residential only, not for businesses, not for stores, not for churches, not for institutional, not for schools, but for the commercial permits for multifamily residential. Major subdivision, preliminary plans, and master developments, which are mixed use. New road names in relationship to proposed subdivisions would also be on hold. And then zoning verification letters. If you are asking for a zoning verification letter to confirm that you can get 600 or so units out of your many hundreds of acres, we're not going to provide that until afterwards because everything will be on hold. We do not expect impact to multifamily residential developments that are currently in process. Some examples are Walnut Creek neighborhood. They're currently in process of building homes there. They should not be impacted by this the way that it's written. Any single-family residential permit, as I said before, if you got a piece of land and you want to put up a house, this should not impact that. Any commercial process is not related to multifamily developments, and any new residential subdivision review outside of the identified area. If you have land in Kershaw and you want to put 300 homes on it, we will listen. We'll take the application, we'll take it to Planning Commission, and we'll review and provide that information to Planning Commission. So, not to say we're going to automatically say yes. We will give it the full, fair review. Some other discussion has been around, well, what are the names of the neighborhoods that would be exempted? So, again, I worked with the different development services staff members to come up with the best list that we could come up with based on what has already been through what I call the hopper, what's been through the process and has what would be considered a vested right. State law in South Carolina says that if you have a right to build, that right continues until certain things happen. So these are these are developments that have been reviewed and approved at some point in the past with the community, both multifamily and townhomes. And in case people didn't know what the difference was, I went ahead and defined multifamily and townhomes on the slide, with multifamily being, people think about it as apartments, and townhomes are basically single-family homes that share a wall. They have their own lot line, which is different than an apartment. When you rent an apartment, you're renting a space inside a building, but that building is all on one piece of property. If you're getting a townhome, the townhome property line is your wall-to-wall, some of the front and some of the back. So that's why that's a little bit different. They are reviewed differently. One requires a subdivision, one does not. And at the bottom of each one of these, I'd like to also give a great thank you to my staff who said, you need to put at the bottom, please be aware that this may not be a complete list of all projects in the moratorium area that are exempt. Please consult with staff concerning any questions or uncertainties. I'd like that disclaimer to go forward on the next two slides, please, as well. Some single-family residential developments that we have reviewed and have been approved since 2020, so in the
All right, folks, we'll rejoin this feed as we're able to. Once again, Lancaster County Council considering a hiatus, a pause on certain development, sounds like residential specifically. We will once again, as we mentioned, try to get back to that feed in just a bit, but it is time for a quick break. And keeping in mind, of course, we've got SpaceX Starship 11, which is currently in progress with its test. We actually think in the next several minutes it's going to begin its splashdown. So, 2 minutes of break. We'll be back with either an update on SpaceX or rejoining one of our feeds here. Thank you so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus, we do indeed want to rejoin the SpaceX feed. Starship 11 is about to splash down. It looks like they've got the boats and the cameras waiting and ready. We also know that SpaceX is providing some announcers and commenters over this feed. So let's go ahead and listen in, and keep in mind, probably in the next, I guess, maybe 3 minutes or so, we'll probably see that splash down.
Campaigns. We're entering that now.
All right, sorry to get those Raptors ready. Should be 2 minutes away from landing burn. Again, we're going to do a flip. after we ignite those engines, we'll go from 3 down to 2 for the final phase of the landing burn and look for another soft splashdown, hopefully by our buoy and drone, which are hanging out, ready and waiting for a ship.
Seeing all 3 center engines have entered the chill phase.
All right, less than a minute to go.
The ship is making its turn for final approach.
And here's this kind of aggressive final turn that would essentially position it so it's right behind the launch and catch tower. Flaps holding strong. Landing burn in just under 20 seconds.
Ship landing startup.
There's our landing burn. Three down to 2.
Starship has landed.
As we said, we're not planning on recovering the ship today. Hey, welcome back to Earth, Starship. We are down in the Indian Ocean. Let him hear at Starbase. What a day.
What a flight.
Oh. All right. Welcome back to Earth, ship. What a day. A whole lot more to go through. As you just saw, everybody here at Starbase pretty hyped. Hey, Tyler, out of Hawthorne, how's everybody holding up?
Thank you, Dan. We had a fantastic time watching. It was another exciting Starship flight test in the books, and we hope that you enjoyed those Starlink views too. So congratulations to the team at Starbase and everyone here and around the company. So many employees contribute to the Starship program as we continue to iterate and make progress towards a multi-planetary future. So that wraps it up for us here in Hawthorne. Thank you for tuning in, and back to you guys.
Yeah, what an incredible launch today. We had successful liftoff. Booster completed its objective, successfully splashed down over in the Gulf. Obviously, we saw another amazing Starlink deploy as well from ship.
Yeah, we made it through that re-entry, testing all the different experience. We had missing tiles, gave us quite the light show. We had that Raptor relight, 3 for 3. That was ahead of re-entry, of course. And then that awesome splashdown that we just saw, including that dynamic banking maneuver to simulate RTLS when we returned to the launch site. So yeah, we promised maximum excitement, and Starship delivered.
Definitely.
Congrats to all our teammates at SpaceX and to everyone who's supporting the Star.
All right, folks, there you saw a successful splashdown for SpaceX Starship 11, splashing down in the Indian Ocean. You saw kind of like a disintegration explosion situation happening in the water. That was expected. As you heard them kind of remark shortly afterwards, we weren't expecting or planning on recovering that piece of the ship. So like we mentioned before when we were covering the launch, before it happened, this essentially is going to string together now 2 successful launches after a string of unsuccessful and in fact explosive test launches by this Starship. So a reminder for folks too, as you're watching that feed, that was provided to us by SpaceX. So you saw a lot of commentary that was, positive nature, a lot of cheering happening. All of those angles that we saw of the camera, that was all provided by SpaceX. And so that was an intention for us to see through SpaceX's messaging, what they were trying to showcase about their endeavors here. So we'll keep you updated as we learn more about any potential launches coming up. Meantime, we promised a peek back into this Lancaster County Council meeting. There's a discussion over development that is in progress. We're going to rejoin that. Just a reminder what's on the table here, a discussion over a 9-month hiatus on some residential applications for development. So we'll listen back in.
Again, check with staff before moving forward. Some examples of how the moratorium would be applied. We brainstormed these. Application to build a new house on a vacant lot in Sugar Creek subdivision.
Lancaster,
well, Sugar Creek has been approved as a major subdivision. They have a lot of lots that they're building on now, but they haven't built on all of them. If someone buys one of those lots, the building can continue on that. If you have an application to rezone 600 acres from rural residential to medium density residential to develop a cluster subdivision, which also would require a development agreement. At this point, if we receive that tomorrow, if you pass this moratorium today, if we were to receive a request like that tomorrow, we would say no. We would say you'd have to wait until the 9-month moratorium has passed. But if you have an application to subdivide one lot into 3 in order to build 3 houses on your family land, that would be allowed in this area. Anything more than that would fall under the blockage from the moratorium. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Harden?
Yes. So thank you for that. That was very helpful. What do you mean by underway?
So underway means that there has been an application that has been received by the county, and there is a review process that has started for that. If I received a subdivision application today for 20 lots off of 40 acres, that person has paid their fee, and the application is in the system, and the review starts. At that point, we have what I think, and I'll defer to Mr. Merck-DuPont for anything further than this, is we have a responsibility to act on that. They've paid their fee, they put in their application, the data has been received. I'm open to other discussion if you have any other differences.
I would like some more feedback on that, especially along the lines of if it is submitted but not approved. Because I guess part of the question is, are sites that are underway, do those have vested rights?
So that's one of the questions we talked about. The UDO lays out the vested rights, and it depends on how much is approved. Is it site-specific approval? Is it phase development? You have to look at all of that because it's 2 years per that, and then the Planning Commission can come up and give 5 annual extensions of that. So those things are sitting out there that you could have some vested rights. We also brought up some questions about resubmittals, people that submit things and then may pull it. And in my opinion, technically, if you pull it, it's over. If you start over again, it's a new application. We had that discussion. I think there was some discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, the TIAs and so forth as well, and I think that was more a staff level question. So it boils down to, and for me, as an attorney, I think I look at it as if it's something new coming through the door, then it's, if it has not started for me, and I don't do the day-to-day with them, obviously. If they haven't given it preliminary plat approval and moving through, then to me it's not approved. Now, I don't know exactly how Development Services handled this, and I hate to say this, but I disagree a little bit with Ms. Harden that if it's just come in the door and we haven't done anything with it, if they've just paid their money and so forth, we haven't approved anything, we haven't moved anything forward in the process. So as a lawyer, I think I would argue that if something has been approved and we have started the process, then it's moving through. If it's just been filed, then it hasn't been approved. There's no approval been given to it. So therefore, it's dead in the water. It stops at this point if this is passed.
They can get a refund of their funds.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's kind of where I was going, because I think having the list of all the sites is really confusing because some of them are completed developments already.
Right.
So it just adds to that. So the reason why I'm wondering is because we have in the ordinance a definition for new that identifies it as vested rights. Then we go with the effect of vested rights. So I'm not sure why we have Section 8 that has all the pending matters that seems to kind of upend everything that we're talking about with vested rights.
To add to Jose's question, we need a definite answer to that question, because if we're going to pass this tonight, it doesn't need to be a maybes. Who do we go to for the definite answers? Do we go to?
I agree with that.
Yeah, we need definite answers.
It doesn't need to be a gray area.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. From a staff standpoint, when we get an application in, we have a directive to move forward until we're told otherwise. If the council would like to say tonight, we do not want to move forward with things that don't already have approval from the Planning Commission, then I would like to have some input on where the cutoff would be. If the Planning Commission has given approval to a subdivision to move forward, that is preliminary plat approval. That is a vested right that's recognized in the UDO. They have a plat. If they are in the process, we have some that are pending review by the Planning. I will definitely would like to have input from the council on whether those should go forward or we should approach them and say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait.
I would think they have to wait.
Yeah.
But that would definitely be
When we make this decision, do we
decision.
need to put that in the form of a motion or amendment to that?
Yes, ma'am, because the pending ordinance doctrine is going into effect with this, you'd want to have everything defined clearly tonight. And I think, Councilmember Luis, perhaps in Section 8 is where we can make that clarification?
That's exactly where I think it needs to happen, where
Okay.
we just clarify that there really are no pending matters. It's really based on if it has vested rights, then it moves forward. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So Section 8, I think, is irrelevant. And then we can take out the exhibits and everything else because it's already defined as a vested right within the UDO.
All right. So
it will not be up for discussion. It will be a definite.
It's defined in the UDO.
I would like a clarification on one point. Are there any pending developments that have sent in their plat and been through the technical review committee and been turned down for?
Well, if it's a plat for subdivision, when you get a turn down from the TRC, that doesn't prevent you from going on to Planning Commission. The comments follow through from Planning Commission, or from staff to Planning Commission, and become part of the discussion. Ms. Williams, are you aware of any time that we have had an applicant get a negative review from TRC and they did not go forward to Planning Commission that wasn't their choice? Okay. So the ones that we have that have not gone forward.
Folks, we will rejoin this discussion as soon as we are able to. Meantime, we want to pivot back to this rally in Washington Heights, New York City. This is a rally we mentioned again for Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic candidate for New York City mayor and the front runner. We are expecting actually, and I believe she just took the stage. It's hard to see because folks are standing and clapping and kind of blocking the camera shot. But New York Attorney General Letitia James is actually set to speak at this rally. And this would be her first public appearance since being indicted on federal fraud charges related to her purchase of a home in Virginia. So we want to listen into the feed and keep in mind, we believe that it is Miss James who is there on the stage, but hard to tell because someone actually just stood up and their head is blocking the shot. So let's listen in. And it is indeed her.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and I've got your back. Yeah. I love you more.
So good evening, everyone. It is so good to be here with all of you, standing with my very good friend, my little brother, and one of the boldest voices in the history of New York politics, Zohran Mamdani. We are here tonight because we are ready to turn the page on the cynical, broken politics of the past. We are ready to build a city that works for the people who actually make it run. Working people, the teachers, the nurses, the drivers, the home health aides, the firefighters, the police, not just for those at the top, but for working people who built this city from the ground up. And we are living through twin crises, a crisis of affordability and a crisis of wage stagnation. Rent is up, and yes, it is too damn high. Groceries cost more, and too many families are living from one paycheck to the next. And childcare is too expensive, and too many New Yorkers are leaving the city because of failed policies of this city and state. And at the same time, we see powerful voices trying to silence truth. Political gain. We are witnessing the fraying of our democracy, the erosion of our system of government. This, my friends, is a defining moment in our history. Let us stand together to defend our rights, to protect every safeguard, every institution, every immigrant. Every norm and every rule of law. You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. All of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together. You see, I've learned to stand on the shoulders of my ancestors who came before me and weathered the storm. And despite being seared with scars, they survived. And if they can survive, so will we. So over the last few days, I've summoned their strength and their courage, and I will keep fighting for justice. I will keep fighting for New Yorkers. I will keep fighting the aggressive policies of Washington, D.C., and I will not stop. I won't give up, and I won't give in. So we triumph over fear. And courage. Courage, my friend, is resistance to fear. And so I fear no man. I see the courage that is embodied in Zoran. And that's why I am supporting him. He is a leader fighting for a better future for this city. And he, like me, knows what it's like to be attacked, to be called names, to be threatened, to be harassed. And each and every day he wakes up with this fire in his belly because he wants to build a better New York. He recognizes that justice is more than just a word, that justice must be made real, that there are people struggling each and every day in this city. And all you have to do is drive around in this city and see all of the lines in the food pantries and all of those who are just trying to put their nickels together to make ends meet. He is a leader who recognizes the pain and the struggle of countless number of New Yorkers, those in public housing tonight that are dealing with the conditions in public housing, those who have to go to housing court tomorrow and face the possibility of being evicted, those who cannot find childcare, those who can't afford the groceries, those who can't afford all of the luxuries that most children get. Those low-income children struggle every day. I've seen it for far too long. And I am supporting someone, this young man, who believes in the same values that I believe in, who recognizes that he is of the people, and who recognizes that we've got to change the way that we do politics in this city. Someone who believes in his heart of hearts that there is a way to raise up all boats and to make sure that this is a city for all of us and not just the rich. And so I'm with Zoran. So let's turn this page. Let's knock on those doors. Let's canvass and talk to our neighbors and tell them the good news. And let's lift up the spirits of those individuals who have been left behind, who don't believe in the sunshine of opportunity, who don't believe in access, who don't believe in politics. Let's convince them that we are about to elect a man who believes in their future. Let's lift the spirits of those who feel hopeless and left out and ignored. And tell them that they are not alone, that we stand with them. And tell them that they are more powerful than they really know, and that their voices will be heard at the ballot box. And that he who endures shall conquer. We will shape a future that we can all deserve. Because now, yes, is our time. So, let's elect a man who believes in that future, a man who really believes in that future, a man who wakes up each and every day thinking how he can improve and build a future for all of us. He's a fighter for a better day, a man who believes in big dreams for all of us. If you believe in Zoran, and if you believe in, again, making sure that all of us will be okay, then right now I need all of you to make some noise. Let them hear you. Let them hear you. Let them hear you. I need you to roar for the next mayor of the city of New York, Zoran Mandami.
Zoran Mandani is the latest and the youngest now to challenge Mayor Eric Adams.
I know that the job of government is to actually...
All right, folks, and while they play this video, and we anticipate in the next several moments Zoran Mandani to actually take the stage, we'll just recap quickly. That was New York Attorney General Letitia James. This is her first public appearance since her indictment on federal fraud charges related to the purchase of that home in Virginia. And we know that she has been, of course, and we heard it in her speech just now, a supporter of Mamdani, and he has been a vocal supporter of her. And he basically recently joined other local Democrats there in New York in denouncing the federal charges that the Attorney General is now facing. He has called it, in his words, quote, a shameless act of political retribution by the president. And we know that James has butted heads and, in fact, been an opponent, legal opponent of the president. She brought that successful civil suit against him. And we know that leading up to this indictment, the president had called upon folks within the DOJ to bring these charges. So with that, I just kind of want to set the table for the next several minutes. We are waiting, Mamdani, if we can bring any sort of his address to you here within our time frame of Live Impact, we certainly will. We wanted to mention, since we kind of left a pin in this and pivoted away a few times, we have that local meeting that we've been following in Lancaster County. The council was considering that 9-month moratorium, essentially a pause on certain residential development permits and processing of applications. We wanted to mention that did pass. You can learn more by tuning in for the news at 11 here on WCNC Plus, but essentially this was a moratorium meant to give county leaders time to finalize their Unified Development Ordinance rewrite, essentially a UDO as it's called, and we have them in Charlotte, and we've talked about them at length in other municipalities, essentially a long-term development plan for that municipality, stating where and how they'd like to develop and what they'd like to see, and essentially the future of how that municipality will grow over the next several years. So we'll just kind of reiterate that this is a pause, 9 months in length. It is supposed to apply only to permits being processed within specific unincorporated areas, and it wouldn't apply to developments that have vested rights, so essentially developments that have already received preliminary sign-off in some way from county leaders. So we'll just kind of remind you again, you can tune in, watch more on this at 11. You can also check out our website, WCNC.com, as we start to put an article together with these latest developments. And with that, we're just a couple minutes away from the top of the hour. We do have coming up in our 9 o'clock hour our Danielle Stein, who is diving deeper into the Panthers' victory over the Cowboys over the weekend, which was, well, I won't speak for Cowboys fans because I can't, and certainly not trying to offend anyone, but it was pretty spectacular to see. It was a great game to watch. And what does this mean, going forward for momentum? They're going on the road to take on the Jets. Can they string together 3 wins? We'll see. And certainly had some standout performances from certain players. So all that will be discussed in our 9 o'clock hour. So I'm checking in on the New York City feed. I don't know if he's taken the stage, folks, in time. So we are going to go ahead and I think kind of pivot away from that. And thank you all for joining us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus, alongside our director, Sean Murray, and our producer, James Brierton. Yes, feel free to pop up the shot. We'll see you for the news at 11 here, and we will see you for Live Impact News in the morning. Thanks for watching here on WCNC Plus.